Africa contributed the least to the global warming. That is less than 4%. Therefore, the global north has the historical responsibility of paying their debt. By 2030, it is estimated that African countries require about $3 trillion to fully implement their NDCs. We are not only victim of climate change, we are also part of the solution.
Hello everyone and welcome to Gaz Plus. Today we're honored to have Mr. Jonas with us. Mr. Jonas is the director of the Consortium for Climate Change Ethiopia and vice chair of the Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance, and he's serving as chair of the NonState Actors Committee for the upcoming Africa Climate Summit 2. Ethiopia will host the second summit in partnership with African Union under the theme Accelerating Global Climate Solutions, Financing for Africa's Resilient and Green Development. In our discussion, we'll delve into critical issues surrounding the climate action, inclusivity, the climate impact of the summit and others. Stay tuned. Thank you for joining us. To begin with, could you briefly introduce the second African Climate Summit?
Okay, thank you for having me and also for inviting to give this briefing with regard to the Africa Climate Summit 2. As you have already mentioned, Ethiopia is going to host the second African Climate Summit from September 8 to 10. The summit will take place in Addis Ababa and it is being hosted with the African Union Commission. And this is one of the biggest summits in the continent as far as climate change negotiation is concerned. And as you already know, this is the second one. The first Africa Climate Summit took place in 2003, before 2 years, in Nairobi, Kenya. And then this is the second edition of the African Climate Summit.
One of the summit's key goal is unlocking the finance, the climate finance. So what mechanisms or partnership are being proposed to ensure tangible outcomes for African nations?
In any climate change negotiation endeavor, climate finance is at the center of every discussion, because when we talk about climate impacts, people who are suffering from the impacts of climate change need adequate finance in order to adapt and mitigate to the impacts of climate change. Therefore, with regard to this African Climate Summit 2, especially the third day is fully dedicated to climate finance. This means that Africa, despite the very insignificant contribution to the cause of global warming, it is a continent which is paying the impact of the adverse impact of climate change. Disproportionately, we are being affected, just like other developing countries. Therefore, soliciting enough amount of finance for the activation, for the adaptation and mitigation purposes is very important, and different mechanisms should be put in place in this summit that will be taking place in Addis. When we say that, the finance is not something that we demand from other developing countries in the form of support or help. This is the historical responsibility that they should technically and financially support the developing countries like Africa, who contributed less than 4% to the global warming. One of the days, the 3 days, is fully committed to climate finance negotiation. It means this is a very complicated part of climate change negotiation, because in UNFCCC COP processes, climate finance very complicated and a very important part of negotiation. The same thing will be expected in Addis, but already the host country and as well as the African Union have their own innovative financial proposals. For instance, we don't only depend on loan mechanisms that they have been providing to Africa. So far, any aid and any finance that come to Africa was in the form of loan. Now Africa is going to negotiate that any finance that should come to Africa should be in the form of grant, not loan. This is one. The second issue might be raised is that we should also have our own innovative financial mobilization mechanisms. For instance, in the form of investment, mobilizing the private sector. These are untapped financial potentials that can be capitalized on.
What will be the role of AU in this phase?
Actually, the African Summit, the first one, for instance, when it started, it was the African Union Assembly who mandated the African Union Commission to organize this summit every 2 years. Therefore, African Union is host of the summit itself. Ethiopia is host country, but we say that African Union and the Ethiopian government are co-hosting the summit because this was initiated primarily during the 36th African Union Assembly that took place in Addis Ababa, February 2023. Okay. And then in that year, Kenya was endorsed to host the first one. And now this one is coming after 2 years. The Ethiopian government, this one, in this case, is now proposed to host the second one. That means the role of the EU is, it is also owner of the summit itself. That is why we say this is not Ethiopian event, this is African event, because it's a continental summit that is taking place in Addis Ababa. It means that African Union is technically and financially, it is part and parcel of the organizing committee.
Do you think that this summit will have a role in achieving the Agenda 2063 of AU?
Exactly, because you know, climate change is a very cross-cutting issue.
Yeah.
We have the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. We have the AU Agenda 2063. They are all working under one umbrella, overarching umbrella program. Any climate change negotiation will contribute to the achievement of the 2063 African Agenda, because this is not something that you treat it separately. It is part and parcel of the very overarching program.
Let's proceed to the reason of why Ethiopia chosen to be host, since Africa and particularly Ethiopia faces disproportionate climate vulnerability due to emissions from other continents. Why was Ethiopia chosen to host this summit, and what message does this send globally?
Yeah, this is very important and a critical question. Ethiopia was selected not without reason, you know. On the first place, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia is the seat of the African Union. This is a diplomatic city. That is one reason why it attracted the attention of the AU summit that took place this year in February. The second one is Ethiopia is a pioneer country in terms of, you know, green movements. For instance, in 2011, Ethiopia launched the first of its kind climate resilient green economy strategy. Yeah. And currently, we have the very famous Green Legacy Initiative, which is a very important initiative for all African countries.
Lasted for 7 years.
For 7 years, yeah. And you know, this is the biggest number of seedling ever planted in this period of time. And this is big initiative as far as green development is concerned. The other one is Ethiopia is also spearheading renewable energy development, including the GARD, the Renaissance Dam, solar energy. Wind energy. We are also ahead of other African countries. Yeah. This is the second reason why Ethiopia is selected. And the other one is, you know, there are also other local initiatives that we can show to the world. You know, in addition to the green legacy, in addition to the climate resilient green economy strategy that I said, in addition to the renewable energy promotion, and for instance, the e-mobility, electric vehicles. Ethiopia is also known for that. When you combine this all, it is enough reason to select Ethiopia to host this important summit of the continent. Still, you can mention the list, but these are the very major reasons why Ethiopia was selected. And to come to your last question, what does this mean to Ethiopia? It means a lot. This is a time where we host more than 25,000 people from around the globe. It means that we have the opportunity of showcasing our local solutions, showcasing our initiatives. You know, the green development, the corridor development in Addis Ababa, the riverside projects. These are quite worth and important to show to the world. It means that we also have solutions. We are not only complaining about climate change, but we have locally led climate solutions, such as the green development. And I think it means a lot. You can also mention the tourist attraction, the ecotourism one, and also, you know, building image of the country itself is not something easy. A man who has been to Addis before 4 years, and a man who comes after 4 or 5 years, he will definitely witness that Addis Ababa is one of the very fast-growing cities in Africa and the globe. This is also what we have to show to the world, because we are known to be poor, we are known to be countries without having any climate solutions, but the history has now changed. We have also something to contribute. We are not only poor, but we are also people with enough solutions to show to the world.
there are climate agreements, for instance, nationally determined contribution, NDC. How do you envision this summit influencing the global implementation of such climate agreements?
One of the landmark climate agreement is the Paris Agreement, which was endorsed by governments of the world in 2015 at COP 21 in Paris. And the Paris Agreement, one of the provisions is that it gives all countries to have their own pledge to lay out the way in which they contribute in decreasing carbon greenhouse gas emissions and also different adaptation practices. And this is captured under a process called nationally determined contribution. This is all parties which are signatory to the Paris Agreement, as the Paris under Article 4 of the Paris Agreement, they have agreed that they will produce nationally determined contributions every 5 years after 2020 climate contribution. And in that document, every country is expected to explicitly put the amount of emissions that they reduce and also the amount of different climate adaptation practices that they implement after 2020. Therefore, now this is the third time countries are now submitting nationally determined contribution to the NFCC. And in this document, you commit that you do something, but it is depending upon getting some amount of money from the developing countries. In order to implement our NDC policy, we need money from the polluters. That is the underlying point. And without implementing our NDC, the global warming will continue. Therefore, in order to stop the global warming or limit the global warming into up to 2 degrees centigrade, the NDC should be implemented by all countries. But implementation is based on conditional and non-conditional. When we say conditional, we need money from the developing countries. Therefore, in this summit, one of the agenda that you said at the beginning is raising enough finance for implementation of our NDCs. Therefore, it is also going to be another important milestone in terms of raising enough money for the NDC implementation. If you look at some figures, by 2030 it is estimated that African countries require about $3 trillion to fully implement their NDCs. But what has been gained so far is only 30 billion. You can see the gap. It is something like 80%. Unless and otherwise we get this gap, implementation of the NDCs will not be possible. If countries are not able to implement their NDC, the global warming will continue. It means that the world will be at risk. Therefore, implementation of NDCs depends on adequate finance. The finance should come from the developing countries. And one of the agenda at this summit will be raising money for NDC implement. This has been negotiated for the last 30 years. We'll try our best, but still 80% is too much. We need something like 2.5 trillion by 2030 to fully implement the NDC. But this is big money. You can't say that it can be mobilized easily, but we have to keep on advocating for more money in order to implement our NDC.
Simply funding money is enough unless they combat climate change or their emission?
It's not enough. It is at the middle of combating climate change, but any commitment, any climate policy cannot be implemented without money. That is why I said it is in the middle of climate negotiation. But it's not enough by itself. Awareness should be there. Mobilization of all actors should be there. Technology development should be there. Capacity building should be there. But finance is only one of the mechanisms by which we combat climate change. But it is very, very important. Whatever policy you have, whatever NDC document you produce, if you don't get enough money, if you don't implement it, it means it is meaningless.
I mentioned earlier you are the chair of the NonState Actors. So how will those actors contribute beyond participating on this summit?
During Africa Climate Summit 1, one of the problems was that the non-state actors were not given enough space to contribute. And then during this second edition, the Ethiopian government and the African Union started from the very beginning bringing on board the non-state actors so that they meaningfully participate. When I say meaningful participation, it's not only participation, it is also contributing to the outcome of the summit itself. Therefore, from the very beginning, this committee which I am chairing was established. By the way, the government of Ethiopia has put in place 7 different committees. And out of the 7, the non-state actors and inclusivity is one. Okay. Look, the non-state actor means civil society, the private sector, academia, youth and the women movements. This is a very big constituency. Yeah. We are given that space at the beginning. It means that we are part of also the plan. For instance, one of the committees is called Content and Program Committee, where everything is designed. Civil societies are also represented in that committee. Means they have the opportunity of shaping the agenda itself. They have the opportunity of contributing to the content itself. Therefore, our role is not only participation. Yeah. You know, we are mobilizing a large number of constituency. We are part of the planning. We are closely working with the African Union and the Ethiopian government. It means that we have also the chance of influencing the outcome itself. Because at the end of the day, we are looking for a very implementable outcome of the summit itself. Therefore, non-state actors are also contributing to that outcome itself through the process.
Third, the summit that needs a guide post-summit actions. To maybe the summit will have produced a declaration or roadmap?
Yes. At the end of the 3-day summit, finally the heads of state and government will finally endorse Addis Ababa Declaration of Africa Climate Summit 2. Okay. That is what is the first outcome that is expected from the summit is this declaration. Based on that declaration, there will also be a roadmap to be implemented for the next 2 years. Because Africa Climate Summit will take place after 2 years in some African country. But between now and the next African Climate Summit, the declaration will be implemented. And that implementation roadmap will also be one of the outcome. Meaning, we will be having Addis Ababa Declaration and with clear roadmap for its implementation.
Okay, beyond that, what is expected as an outcome for a benefit of the summit for Ethiopia and as a continent as well as globally?
Yeah, when we talk about the outcome of this summit, the first one is to amplify common Africa's position with regard to the impacts of climate change.
As a leader?
Yes, because now in September we will be having 3 important global events. One is the COP30 that will take place in Brazil, in Belém. The other one is the G20 meeting that will happen in South Africa. The other one is the UN General Assembly that will take place in New York. These 3 international events are where important climate decisions will be made globally. Therefore, in this summit, the African heads of state and government will come together and will have one common voice representing Africa. This is a very important issue because it is this position that will be taken to the global agenda. Unless and otherwise we are able to speak in one voice, the African position cannot be known. Therefore, the African position with regard to climate change will be coined in this summit. But this is very important, The second one is now people are coming not only from Africa. We have different leaders from international organizations. It is also time to build image of Africa, not only Ethiopia. Yeah. We are going to tell to the world, we are not only victim of climate change, we are also part of the solution. We have innovative solution. This is also another opportunity. When it comes to Ethiopia, it is double-fold because it is taking place in our country. We can build our image. The tourism is very high. 25,000 people means a lot. Therefore, we are also showing to the world that we are also part of the climate solution. We are not also part of the problem. I think this should be communicated very well. And there is global trend that considers Africa always as a victim. as a
of the
country which is
solution.
very poor, victim of climate change, always begging for money. That is not the right narrative. We are not begging money. We are telling them to discharge their historical responsibilities because they are the one who caused the global warming. Therefore, we will tell to the world that you caused the problem, pay for that. Secondly, we will tell them we have also solutions, locally led solutions, innovative solutions. You know, the green legacy is one solution to combat climate change impacts. We have to show the world. If you go to the Ministry of Agriculture, there are very excellent initiatives. Here is also where we showcase our good best practices locally.
Yeah.
Therefore,
You're right.
it is multi-purpose summit beyond the outcome itself. Big companies are coming now
For
to Addis Ababa, yes.
Yeah.
It is also a time when we mobilize a large amount of money, pledge for the different initiatives, not only for Ethiopia, even for Africa. The renewable energy movement in Africa needs money, therefore partnership and resource mobilization will also take place during the summit. It means a lot.
Finally, what message would you like to share with the global stakeholders watching this summit unfold? And how can citizens and non-state actors stay engaged beyond the summit?
Yeah, the message as a non-state actor is one and clear. That is that Africa contributed the least to the global warming. That is less than 4%. Therefore, the global north has the historical responsibility of paying their debt for the problem that they caused. That is one message as a non-state actor. To the African brothers and sisters, we are also part of the solution. Africa has its own solution, its own resources, and that can be managed properly. And for Ethiopian colleagues, brothers and sisters, this is a time to showcase our best practices. This is the time to show our hospitality to the world. This is a time to show that Ethiopia also have very nice initiatives that can be upscaled and also taken to other African countries. And for the media like you, it is also time to work closely with the non-state actors so that create a good image of this country and also communicate this to the general public. As you are doing now, this information should be disseminated, and I think this is one of the biggest climate summit in the world for that matter. And you should also remember that from September 1 to 5, we have the UNFCCC Climate Week. From September 5 to 7, there is a pre-summit, and the whole of September is full of international events, and I think that is very, very important, even for the country as a whole, for the continent, and we have also something to communicate to the global world.
Okay, thank you, Mr. It's a pleasure to be with you. You have shared a huge idea. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, our Gaz Plus audience. We will see you next time on the next video.